Hello, everybody. Thank you very much. I always appreciate you hanging out. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr. Welcome to another classic movie review. We are now approaching the end of the summer of 2025. Got me thinking about some of my favorite summer popcorn blockbuster movies of the past. Then I realized it is the 30th anniversary of one of my personal favorite summer movies that came out back in the day, released June 16th, 1995. Batman Forever, directed by Joel Schumacher, starring Val Kilmer stepping into the cape and cowl after the departure of Michael Keaton. You also have Chris O'Donnell coming in as Robin slash Dick Grayson. You have Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face, Harvey Dent, Jim Carrey as Edward Nygma, aka The Riddler. You also have Nicole Kidman as Dr. Chase Meridian. And returning from the previous two Batman films that were directed by Tim Burton, you have Pat Hingle returning as Commissioner Gordon and Michael Gough as our beloved Alfred. So this movie is the third live-action Warner Brothers theatrically released Batman film following the huge success of 1989's Batman and 1992's Batman Returns. And at first glance, when you take a look at this movie, to look at Gotham City in this movie, and just to look at the character designs and see how different they are from the first two films, and since it is a different director, it would be very easy to assume that none of this is related to the first two movies, since it looks different and Batman is a different actor this time, and so it's easy to get confused and think maybe this is its own thing or just a reboot. But there are things in the movie that tell you as a viewer, no, this is actually in the same continuity as those first two Burton films. The director of this movie, Joel Schumacher, came in with his own vision for Gotham City, and so gone are the Art Deco styles of Anton Furst from the first movie and the more gothic kind of style that Bo Welch brought to the second film. The production designer on this movie was Barbara Ling, and although I do prefer the Gotham City of the first two films because they're a little darker and more gothic and just fits the world of Batman for me a bit more, I do like what they did with Gotham in this movie. There are these giant statues that are the size of buildings that go up a mile high, and you don't see as many gargoyles as you did like in the Tim Burton movies on like the roofs of buildings and stuff. But yeah, huge statues that look like Greek gods and nipples and nipples galore actually, especially when we're talking bat suits. Like the first two movies, the plot in this movie is pretty simple. You got Batman slash Bruce Wayne, who every now and then is doing battle with Harvey Two-Face, who has this grudge against Batman. You have a newcomer villain in town who has a grudge against Bruce Wayne, who decides to turn to crime and team up with Harvey Two-Face. Of course, that is the Riddler, played by Jim Carrey. And so you got Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones bouncing off of each other. Jim Carrey bouncing off the walls, and Tommy Lee Jones is trying to keep up. They do a very good job of showing you the origin of the Robin character in this movie. It's not entirely comic book accurate, but I'm not one of those sticklers for everything's got to be comic accurate. For me, the movies are the movies. I don't care if they want to deviate, as long as they do a good job of making a good story and making it entertaining. And so, yeah, Robin origin story, pretty awesome in this. And then you got Chase Meridian in here, who's basically just chasing Batman, just wants Batman. She wants that bat ass. And so she's into Batman, but Bruce Wayne is into her, but not as Batman, as Bruce Wayne. And so it's like this weird three-way or kind of more two-way love triangle. And we get some pretty nice little dialogue from her where we get some cool references to Batman Returns and Catwoman, Michelle Pfeiffer, where she says, well, maybe I need some skin-tight vinyl and a whip. So if you catch little things like that, you'll see this is within the continuity of the Tim Burton films, regardless of the way it looks and everything. All the while, Jim Carrey's character, Edward Nygma, has this huge grudge against Bruce Wayne and has a plan of revenge, and Jim Carrey really evokes the TV Riddler in this movie from the 60s, the Frank Gorshin Riddler, and I think he does a great job, although at times he's pretty much just doing the whole Jim Carrey bit, but it works for this version of the Riddler. And even though this Two-Face in this movie isn't the Two-Face that I would have wanted, because if you've seen the animated series then you know just how great a character Two-Face can be. Unfortunately, this version of Two-Face feels a lot more like Jack Nicholson's Joker, and we wouldn't really get a more proper version of Two-Face until 2008's The Dark Knight from Christopher Nolan. But for what this movie was going for in terms of the tone of the movie, I think that Tommy Lee Jones is serviceable. I think that he is fun to watch overall. I'm a fan of Tommy Lee Jones, and so it is fun to see him just having fun on screen, at least for me. Because the tone of this movie is a bit more family friendly and there's a bit more comedy in this one, and they lean into the camp side of Batman a bit more, it does kind of rub off a bit on our main hero, on Val Kilmer's Batman, and it does take away a bit from that image of, the Dark Knight. You get more of the Caped Crusader side of Batman with this. Leans into the 1966 Batman. As Bruce Wayne, I think Val Kilmer did a very good job in the role. I think he absolutely looked the part, and I really liked the way he carried himself as the character. But whenever he was in the cape and cowl as Batman, it felt like a more generic performance. Now, as much as I love this movie, I am aware that it's not a perfect movie. It does have plenty of flaws to go around. You got bad guys with neon guns. Why? I don't know, but Schumacher wanted it. You got the bat nipples, which are not necessary. The Batmobile. Not a fan of this Batmobile. The Batmobile in Burton's movie was all black, and so it made sense because, stealth, right? Why are you going to drive around in a freaking neon lit Batmobile with these blue lights just coming out of the insides? No matter where you go, they're going to see you coming, Batman. And so, yeah, the Batmobile in this movie, not a fan of it, especially the flippers in the back that keep on flipping. The laundry foo scene, the infamous Dick Grayson laundry foo scene, is one of the most eye-rolling moments in any comic book movie. There's one really dumb moment where Batman Bruce Wayne is in the Batcave talking to Alfred, and he's looking at footage of Nicole Kidman's character, Dr. Chase Meridian, on these monitors. Really slow motion footage of her flipping her hair. It looks like a freaking Revlon commercial, and it's like, where did you get this footage? But the biggest sin, the overall thing that really grinds my gears when it comes to this movie, is this bullshit about Bruce Wayne saying, I've never been in love before, Alfred, and all of a sudden he wants to quit being Batman. That shit always bothers me when they do it in the movies. It bothered me when Nolan did it in his trilogy. It didn't matter to me if it was a, time jump thing. Batman doesn't quit like that for some bullshit. And Batman isn't going to quit being Batman just because he gets some ass all of a sudden. Now, one of the big positives that I think this movie has going for it in spades compared to the first two movies is when it comes to Batman and Batman Returns, you can make an argument that those movies were more about the villains, but when you get to Batman Forever, this is a more Batman-centric story. This movie focuses more on the character of Batman and Bruce Wayne. And although I do prefer the more gothic version of Batman with the first two movies that came before this one, I do enjoy this movie. I do like the lighter, kind of campier version of Batman because I am a fan of Batman 66. I grew up watching Adam West on TV as Batman, and so to watch this movie on the big screen back in 1995 kind of felt like a dream come true as a fan of this material. Now, something about Joel Schumacher is I gotta give credit where credit is due, because even though he did kind of run this franchise into the ground with the film that follows this one, Batman and Robin, with Batman Forever, he really broke some new ground. He did something that studios at the time were really scared to do, because the first two Batman movies, although they did have some, elements of fantasy in them, they had a more grounded feel. But with this one, Schumacher took the direction of going way more comic booky, and so this is more cartoony. It is a lot more fun. It leans into the more campy and fantastical aspects of the world, and so that's something that movies didn't start doing until you get to like the 2000s when you had the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies coming out, and people said, oh wow, now this is how you do a comic book movie. The first two Batman films that were directed by Tim Burton did have some comic booky elements, but not to this extent. In this one, there are some full-on references to comics and even Easter eggs. There's one shot where it's clearly kind of a replication or a recreation of the cover of Batman Year One from Frank Miller. I know that it's just one shot that lasts for a few seconds in a very brief flashback scene, but as a fan, I love seeing that up there on the big screen, and I'm really kind of grateful that Joel Schumacher took the time to include that kind of thing in this movie, as well as the origin of Robin, which Tim Burton was really hesitant to do. And in the same way that Jack Nicholson's Joker kind of steals Batman 89, Jim Carrey does the same with his Riddler in this movie. I do think that it kind of helps the movie. I'm sure some people feel like it hurts it because it's just the Jim Carrey show at times. But I love Jim Carrey, and I think he's great as the Riddler, and so it doesn't bother me. And I just think he's entertaining as hell in this movie. I think he gives this movie the energy that it needs at times, especially when you have those Chase Meridian scenes that kind of brings the energy down at times. So yeah, it's a flawed but ultimately very fun Batman movie that I do recommend. I give this movie 3 stars, and I enjoy the hell out of this movie. Batman Forever from 1995. You guys know me, I'm a hard copy guy. I got my copy right here of the Blu-ray, and that is not the original cover, but still a pretty damn cool cover. and I do like this one. Thank you very much for watching this classic movie review. I always appreciate it. If you're into the classics, if you're into movies, if you're into this kind of thing, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications and more reviews from me coming out very soon. If you're a returning viewer, thank you very much for all your support and your views. I appreciate it. Please don't forget to comment, share, like. It always helps. And I'll see you on the next one. Everybody take care of each other. Till next time, peace out. God bless.